This is the Troutbitten Podcast.
Troutbitten.
Troutbitten?
Troutbitten.
Troutbitten.
Troutbitten?
Yeah, Troutbitten.
Troutbitten.
It's about trout.
Wild trout. This is Troutbitten.
This is the Troutbitten Podcast. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Dominic Swantowski. I'm the owner of Troutbitten and the author of Troutbitten.com. All right, my friends, this podcast is about wading a river. Good wading, better wading, confident wading. Because for a river angler, I believe nothing is more important. Let me start at the beginning. I grew up playing in the watery ravine across the road and over the hill from my childhood home. And though I badly wished for trout in that small valley, there were none. But the small stream did hold everything I'd ever need to know about currents in a river. In a small format that matched my size, I learned about wading through moving water. And because I learned this early, I now wade easily in my middle age, and I'm confident that I'll be wading rivers until my time in these valleys is finished. There are three main things that hold anglers back from covering water: casting skill, physical fitness, and wading ability. In some ways, all three of these are intertwined. The best casts are enabled by placing yourself in excellent positions. And confident wading only happens if you're in good enough shape to stand up to the current. But wading is a skill. It's not brute strength, but an artful balance. It's a combination of preparation, reading water, and thoughtful positioning. Case in point here. One of the best anglers I've ever met is also the oldest gentleman I've ever guided. At 87, Joe glided through the river. He was slower than most, but more stable. He waded what he could handle and left the rest. With excellent discipline, Joe mostly tight-lined his nymphs at short range, wading and moving through pockets and chutes. He often ended up in water where you'd never expect to see a man of 80-plus years standing and fishing. I've guided 20-something college athletes that couldn't wade in such places. But because Joe employed all the elements of a good wader, he excelled. And we're going to cover many of these fundamentals tonight. So I watched Joe in the river, comfortable and having fun all day long. And he'd done that for a long time. And importantly, although Joe might have moved slowly, he was almost always moving. Now that kind of wading we're talking about is not just walking from place to place, because good fly fishing requires great footwork along the way. I meet a lot of anglers who approach a river all wrong, in my opinion. They wade into a spot, set up, and then cast to every piece of water they can reach, at all angles, before picking up and wading again to repeat the process. But this is rarely the best approach. Consider the variables. There's a distance at which you are most accurate. There's a light angle that is most advantageous. There's a certain water type where trout are feeding more agreeably. So the best river anglers move almost constantly, setting themselves up to best approach the next great piece of water. As wading anglers, we must wade efficiently. It's that simple. Casting over a pod of consistently rising trout is the exception to the rule. And if that's your game, then ignore my advice and stay put. But in most situations, being mobile is the better approach. And I do mean constantly moving. Remember Joe. If you could watch this 87-year-old man fish today, you'd see that his feet are rarely static. Joe glides, he shuffles, he nudges over 12 inches into the neighboring seam to set up his next cast. And in the course of 10 minutes, he might wade through an entire run. He's probably picked up a few fish along the way, too. Joe doesn't extend his range beyond the distance necessary, and he doesn't beat up one spot. Instead, Joe's motion puts him constantly over fresh fish, and he casts at the best angles. He's honestly one of the most efficient anglers I've ever seen. If this concept of constant motion is new to you, then it will take sincere effort to break the old habits of locking your feet to the riverbed for long lengths of time. Fishing habits are harder than most to break. But good wading skills changes the game like nothing else. When you are comfortable and confident in the water, when you can easily move to the other side just because the light angles are better, the river opens up in a whole new way. So, that's what we're here to talk about tonight. The Troutbitten guys are with me and ready to walk through some of our best wading tips. This advice is born from experience, from many, many mistakes and fall-ins from each of us. From learning the hard way and then coming out the other side into the clear, all of us as better anglers, because we were stubborn enough to do what is necessary to be a good wader. I promise you, nothing makes fishing a river more enjoyable than confident wading. And honestly, that's where it all starts. All right, here are my Troutbitten friends, and I'm keeping the introductions short again this week, guys. But hey, for each of you, how about telling us the last time you fell in? And I know it can't be too long ago, right? All right, so Matt Grobe, what do you have?
I would say I fell in about 3 weeks ago. At that time, It was still lots of snow on the banks out here, which at that time I was more hesitant to allow I was fishing on the bank, very large number of odd boulders, which causes tricky footing. And usually you're giving yourself some more support with an arm on the bank, like, you know what I mean? Stabilizing. I think sometimes that's important when you're in some tricky terrain. But because the snow was there, I was being a PAP, and I didn't want to get my hand on the boulder with the snow, and so I neglected to secure the proper, stabilization, and did a head in right, face first, 38-degree water. Yeah. And, I tell you, man, you want to talk about shocking. That's the shocking fall in for me is winter. Like summer, I don't care.
Right. Right.
We'll get into it. I mean, I can talk about stuff. I actually encourage people to jump in and see what that feels like with a wading belt.
Sure.
Because it gives you confidence when you understand you got some time before your waders truly fill up with a wading belt.
Oh,
but anyway, I don't like doing it in the winter, and I did a couple weeks ago.
No. That is face first. That's a real fall.
Face first. And luckily I didn't smash my face off a rock. That's
That's true.
Yeah, but I'm here, so it's all good.
It is. Hey, Josh, when's your last fall in? Josh Darling.
Hi. So I've had some minor ones, but the last time that I really went into the water, I think, was around October. And
wow, that's a long time ago.
Yeah, but
You're stable.
Yeah, well,
this guy. It's all those push-ups and squats.
Yeah, that's right.
What wading boots do you have, son?
Seriously.
Only the G4s, guys. Come on.
All right.
So I think the last time I was really underwater was October, and it was in shallow water on a river that I fish all the time, on a stretch that I fish all the time. And I remember walking through the water and thinking, I will say it was up and off color enough that I could not see the bottom.
Yeah.
And I was walking, and I remember thinking to myself, like, I know this stretch, and I know that this is flat. I don't need to worry about anything. And so I was walking upstream, legitimately, like, thinking about the fact that I don't need to worry about anything because I know this water is flat. Like, I know that this is flat. And so, but there's a rock that was not large enough to disturb the surface at all, but large enough that I did not clear it. And I was walking with enough fervor that I caught it and ate it pretty good. I actually like messed up my left wrist for a couple months doing that. Yeah.
I kind of remember that. Yeah. I remember you talking about that.
It wasn't bad enough that I couldn't use it, but it was bad enough that I complained about it. Yep.
So you went under.
Yeah. Well, half under. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what a real fall in is. Yeah. Not that you're completely under.
Yeah. Water in the waders, clothes wet.
There you go. Yep. That's a fall in.
Yeah.
Yesterday, Joey and I fished a stocked stream, and just for some fun. And man, they were eager. It was a blast. And I put both arms down. I started tripping, and water was up pretty good. I'm in the middle, and it was kind of slick, whatever. And I got pushed around. You know how you kind of crouch down and you kind of put your arms in the water? And I didn't even touch anything, but I just kind of stabilized myself with the arms. And I almost went to the top of my waders, but I didn't go over. And I was up to my elbows. I had long sleeves on, so now whatever, I'm dripping. And I come out, and I kind of splashed my face a little bit too. And Joey's like, "Oh, you fell in." I'm like, "No, that wasn't a fall in." I didn't. No, I didn't fall in. No, really. But I don't know. That's what I'm saying. Like that kind of. I'm not going to say every day, but probably that happens to all of us once a week. If you're fishing every day, that happens pretty commonly. But those real fall-ins. Bill Dell, when's your latest fall-in?
Been a knock on wood. It's been a long time.
Get up.
Yeah, since true fall-in. The most recent memorable, I would say, fall is when it was either it was maybe 2 springs ago. I was fishing.
Come on.
All right.
He's kicked
All
off.
right.
This guy,
You
no.
haven't been fishing enough.
No.
Del.
No, this guy's kicked off. No. 2 years. Guys, I'm following him for 2 years. Yep.
I'm going to come home just so I can tackle you into the stream.
That's right. Throw me in the river.
That's nuts, Bill.
You
Yeah,
haven't
I
been
just-
fishing that river yet. That river you fished the other day. You haven't been fishing that enough because I give it time. You'll
Yeah.
eat
Oh,
shit
yeah.
on that river.
The big boy. The
Oh,
big
yeah.
boy river.
Yeah, I've gone in over my head there twice, but yeah, the
Deuce
last
brains.
memorable one, I was brook trout fishing, and I wouldn't even call it I wouldn't even call it like a
Right.
I was hopping rocks, and I hopped the rock, feeling young and energetic, and decided I would just hop up on this rock, and it had all this nice green moss on it, which is usually good footing.
Mhm.
And I jumped up on it, and my boot slid off, the giant chunk of moss slid off, my feet went straight up in the air, and I went down on my ass and spiked my reel into a rock and shattered the bottom part of the reel.
That's a catastrophe.
Yeah, that was a nasty one.
I will say one thing about it. In a way, it doesn't surprise me because when we were all wading together the other day.
Yeah.
And I was trying to keep up with wading upstream with Bill, and I consider myself to like be pretty good at wading, pretty fit, like have somewhat
think we all
strong
are.
hip flexors. Like I feel really good in the water. And it was wild. I was like burning keeping up with Bill. I was like, this is painful. The pace that he's walking. It was when we were walking back up to. It's when we were walking back to the cars, and so we weren't like moving at a fishing pace. We were moving at a let's get back to the cars pace.
See, everybody's good at least one thing.
Yeah, I can walk through water.
Bill's good at getting back to the car.
I think our local river, like the big one,
Yeah.
it'll make you a
Right.
good wader, whether
Yeah.
you want to or not, or you're not going to fish.
It'll train
And
you.
So yeah, and it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I still, whatever. That's crazy. I bet you have a lot more
2 years
things
is
that
a
I'd
lot.
call a fall in. Yeah, he's saying 2 years. I bet there's a lot more. You have a lot more minor fall ins than that, though, right, Bill? Arm goes down.
Don't question Surefoot Billy.
There you
No.
go.
Surefoot
He's got
Billy.
Surefoot Deli.
No, I don't know. I guess
That's it, Matt.
Meanwhile, Dell's got an innovative foot sole that nobody knows about.
Yeah, we're gonna
It's
hear
the
about
corkers.
that.
It's
yeah,
the
it's just
corkers.
corkers. Yeah. See if you'd
All
wear
right.
corkers like I do. You wouldn't
All
have
right,
that
so
problem.
Bill fishes a lot, doesn't fall in, and we'll hear his secrets in a minute. Whatever, this guy. Let's go. I'm waiting for him to go. Well, last week, 2 weeks ago, whatever, I fell in.
I'll have a story in 2 weeks when I go ass
we're-
over tin
we're
cups
all-
into the river.
Yeah,
It's
we're
coming.
all pushing you in. now.
We're like jinxing him next week. We just Bill Dell off
Mm-hmm.
the podcast. No one ever heard from him again.
No.
Slipped and hit his head on a rock.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I'm tripping him. Hey, let's do a question. Listener question. I chose just one that was this is timely. This one fits right into our topic, and it came in from Rob on Instagram. Trevor's not here; he's our designated reader, but he had surgery, so he's not here. Doc had surgery.
Surgery on the schnoz.
Hockey fight.
Yep. Anyway,
Schnozzle surgery.
and Austin is what
Snosh.
in Sweden? Is that where he is? Austin's in Sweden,
No, he's somewhere in Europe,
somewhere in Europe.
eating
the only
cheese
real-
and drinking
he's the-
wine.
Yeah, he's the only real fly fisherman in PA that decided to leave during the best time to fish.
In May, Austin takes a vacation. Okay, so anyway, Trevor's not here, so who's going to read it?
I got it. I got it.
Matt Grove with the read
Let's
of
go.
Rob's question.
All right. Hey, Dom, I learned a lot on our guided trip last year, and I remember one of the things you told me was to keep moving. I feel like that approach has been really working for me because I catch more fish and cover water, as you say. But
Hey, Daddy,
sorry, guys, that's my daughter. Wait,
We're leaving that
Oh,
in.
keep that in. Yeah.
okay.
Get her closer to the mic.
Did it break?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's
Let's
it.
say hi real quick. Okay,
Let's hear.
listen. These are all my friends. Okay? Say we're talking trout.
This is Madison.
This is Madison. Say named
Yeah.
after the Madison. That's all right. Say hi.
Hi, Madison.
Can you say hi?
No.
Nope. Okay. All right.
She says that guy's missing a tooth.
Yeah.
Hey, shut up.
Yeah. She's like, what is that guy? Okay. Yeah. Listen, I'll be back. I'll be out in a little bit, okay?
Listen, we're gonna watch a show. Okay. We're gonna watch a show.
She's like, why is Dad? She found out the last year and a half. Why the hell's Dad in the closet? I found him. She's like, why does Dad always run errands?
Why does he?
Do you know where I stopped? I think I stopped.
But I ran into a video clip.
Okay. All right. Reset.
Mm-hmm.
But I ran into this video clip from George Daniel where he says the cardinal sin of fly fishing is to move while you cast. He says he hates to watch people moving while casting and that fishermen should never do it. I feel like you told me the opposite. I know you and George are both good at what you do. So I'd be curious to hear your thoughts. Maybe you could use this as a podcast question because it would be neat to hear from the other Troutbitten guys as well. I bet everyone has a different answer.
Right on.
There you go.
That's applicable, right? I mean, it's right into our topic.
He's saying, I think what George is saying is,
yes,
while you're in the act of casting, don't wade.
Mm-hmm.
But you're saying move your feet consistently, but not necessarily while in the act of casting.
I think that's a good breakdown. I think that's a good point. And I overall agree with that. Well, but I don't completely agree with that. I actually cast quite a bit while I'm moving, depending on the tactic that I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I often recommend to people, for example, if they're streamer fishing, you can move while you cast. You can move while you strip. And you can move while you're fishing that dry fly. I do that quite a bit. After I wrote this layout and put this question in there, I've been fishing twice. And I realized I'm doing this a lot. I'm casting and fishing dries. Or I should say I'm casting and drifting while I'm fishing the dries. I was fishing an indie rig with a 9-foot leader and, mending fly line and stuff. And while I'm doing that, I can move. Now, I'm not taking 3-foot steps, but I'm moving, I'm shuffling. So I got a ton of respect for George Daniel. I know you guys all do, and we all know him. George has got great ideas. And I actually saw this clip on Instagram, and I went looking after Rob sent this to me. I went looking for the full video, and maybe there is more, because like you said, Bill, I bet George's point is deeper than this. And I don't know, but George may also have been just saying, recommending to beginners, perhaps, like, hey, don't try to cast while you're thinking. Moving, right? But we're not necessarily catering to beginners on this podcast. We've made that known for a very long time. And when we guide, I tell people a lot, when I know they can handle it, I'm like, let's go cover water. And we can move while we're doing that, Imagine if someone put as much time, thought, and effort into designing fishing apparel as you put into finding fish. Well, someone did. Squala Fly Fishing builds waders, jackets, shirts, and pants so well designed, dependable, and comfortable, you hardly notice them. When you're wearing Squala, you're never hot or wet or unreasonably cold, so you can focus on more important things, like fishing. They don't make gear for everybody. They make gear for us, the like-minded few, serious anglers who don't take themselves too seriously. Check them out at squalafishing.com. Then use the code TROUTBITTEN10, that's the number 10, for 10% off your first order from Squala. As fly anglers and tyers, we understand the value of having the right tool for the job. AvidMax.com offers over 20,000 products and the knowledge to help you find the right tool for your job, whether that be at the tying bench or on the water. Listeners of the Troutbitten podcast receive a special one-time discount code at AvidMax.com. Enter the code TB10 at checkout on full-priced items to save 10% off your order. Orders over $25 ship for free, so you can put more gas in your tank or beer in your cooler. For all things fly fishing and tying, elevate your game with AvidMax. What are your thoughts?
I feel like I've missed a lot of fish, like streamer fishing.
Yeah.
But I'm taking substantial steps.
Right.
Like maybe let's say I'm moving 2 or 3 feet per step. And when I'm throwing streamers, I find myself that I'm not as focused. It's like, patting your stomach and rubbing your head at the same time. Yeah,
agreed. That's too big of a distance for me too. But I'll move a little bit. I'll slide over. Like I was saying, Joe, the guy I guided, he was just kind of constantly moving. And by constantly, I mean it. And I've seen us all do this. I've been kind of aware of this for a long time, that we all just kind of do this. Most of the best anglers that I see, we're all kind of constantly shuffling and moving into that next spot. Mm-hmm. By shuffle, I mean like I said, 6 inches, 12 inches over to the right, or leaning a little bit and then taking that half step forward. Josh, you got something.
What you were saying about it being important, what tactic you're using is key here, because even with tight line nymphing, a lot of times I will be moving during the cast. Like I might be taking a step in the back cast, and before I shoot it forward and into the actual cast, my foot will come to rest, and I'll lock it in for the drift.
Nice.
And then you set, I take another step and cast 2 feet further, or whatever it is, into the next seam or lane. To what you said, Bill, is like with streamer fishing, I think a lot of it depends on how far you're fishing from your streamer as well. Like I'm more apt to walk, to move and shuffle during the retrieve or the cast if I'm fishing slightly farther away. If I'm close, I treat it a lot more like I'm fishing nymphs, and I'd like to have less disturbance in the water, just because I'm assuming there is sound under there with gravel shifting and stuff like that. And so if I'm close, I tend to not move quite as much. But if I'm further, I will move downstream with the streamer a little bit, get a little bit more of in a way, it gets you a little bit more reach also with your drift.
Yes. That's what I was doing with the dry fly. I continued to get really good dead drifts, and I'm like, well, I'm just going to walk. I kind of was walking downstream with it, within reason. I was probably making 5 or 6 feet of progress. Downstream, there, it's still not dragging. I got another step, and then it would finally drag. Oh, get it out of there.
Yeah.
It was pretty neat, and I was just thinking about it because of this question. And like I said, though, I've been kind of aware of it for a long time. It wasn't too many podcasts ago where Trevor pointed out that on a tight line, that's a bad thing to do. Let's say during the drift, after the cast, during the drift, where everything is going to track toward your rod tip on a tight line, pure tight line to the nymph or the streamer, let's say. And if you're aiming seriously for a dead drift that's in one seam, well, you better not move during that drift, or your rod tip's going to move, and everything's going to track to a different spot than it probably should be tracking to. However, and I remember Trevor saying this, I think we were talking dry dropper styles, and Trevor was saying that as he does dry dropper, he enjoys the freedom that style gives him to cast and then kind of move as the fly is out there, as the dry dropper rig is out there, and you might throw a mend or whatever style he's talking about with dry dropper, and that frees you up, that anchor to the top. I don't know if you know what I mean by anchor, that positioning on top of the dry fly or the indie, and then you can throw a mend.
Your rod tip,
Yeah. And that gives you the freedom to flex, to move around a little bit, but not giant steps either.
I think that's all great stuff. I think if it was me, I think I would agree on the beginner side of things. I would probably back off any conversation about moving. I think we all agree with that. I find myself absolutely moving in the water, especially when I'm dry fly fishing. I love to pick up my flies and dry them off in between holes, especially when I'm wet wading in the summer from pocket water to pocket water.
Casting, even with big steps. Yeah.
Yep. Just move upstream and I'm drying my fly off, and then it's so-called dressed before the next hole, and I'm ready to present it to a eager trout, hopefully. I find myself doing that, walking and casting more than anything, but usually, like you said, Dom, people look at me and they're like, wow, man, you're crazy walking on the stream. I think some of it with us, we're so used to it. It's like a second nature to us that we can do a lot of things. And that's not boasting. That's just, you start fishing when you're 12 or 13 or 14, and you're going to be, and we'll get into this in the podcast, but you're just going to, it's like natural to you, right? Yeah. To do all those things in the water. It's very fluid. Yep. And I would say that just comes with time on the water.
Time on the water. It's not boastful, like you said.
So Rob, I think George had a valid point. And then when you elaborate to it, there's definitely things that can be utilized to your benefit. Once you gain more confidence, doing something like that within wading and fishing in general, it just has to be the right time.
Yeah.
In your angling career.
Yeah, you got to fish within your means, no matter what the situation is. You're not trying to stretch your abilities, I suppose, in the beginning or at any point. We all know what our abilities are, and we know, I have trouble with this. So, or in the tightest cover, I'm gonna stay there. Now I'm gonna cast. I'm gonna even reel in so I don't tangle up in the adjoining brush, and then I'm gonna get up to the next spot. I don't know. All right, guys, let's get to it, and let's get to our topic. Hey, why does good wading matter so much? We're saying good wading, excellent skills, that confidence to just wade almost wherever you want, within reason. How it just opens the whole river up.
Sure.
Why does it matter so much, guys?
There's only so many fish, and let's say you start in, maybe there's one fish in that run, maybe there's 5 fish in that run. If you're not able to wade X number of yards, miles, or whatever, you're limiting the amount of fish you can catch, just based on the amount of fish that will see your flies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every single spot where a fish lies has an optimal angle of approach, like angle of attack.
Point.
And so, which means that every single spot has a different spot that you should be standing to get the perfect presentation to that fish. And if that's the case, then you've got to stand in a lot of different places throughout a day of fishing.
Yeah.
There you go.
Wow.
That might be the best
Spot on.
sentence of the podcast right there. You've got to stand in a lot of different places through a day of fishing.
Yep.
There you go.
That's excellent. I would say that's, from what I see, I think that's one of the biggest issues for a lot of anglers that I spend time with, beginners, intermediates, even advanced folks.
Yeah.
And Bill said it, man. It's like you get yourself into a really good position and chance to catch fish, which is what we're all out there to do. If you're a good wader and can get yourself into the right position, but also we say good wading, it's, it's reading the water. Like, Josh said, I mean, I can't tell you how many times you have a bad angle on a fish and it doesn't materialize. And so people don't rationalize that enough, I think, on their game, that it's like, it's hard to explain, but you guys get what I'm trying to say. It's very important to approach it right. And it all starts with waiting.
Well, we understand what you're saying, Matt, but I've guided enough really good anglers to know that not everyone out there is going to understand what you're saying. People don't see it that way as much, and it's because of a limitation. It's because they look at the water and they go, well, I could stand here, but I'm not comfortable standing over there. It might not even be a conscious decision for them, but they're comfortable here. They're not comfortable 10 more feet out, or wading to the other side just
That's
to fish.
spot
Like I
on.
said, sometimes light angles are very poor from the left side. I mean, you can't see into the glare. I don't care what kind of glasses you have. You get over to the other side and you go, there we go. I can see everything. I can see into the water. I can see all the lanes. Sometimes I can see the fish. But many people, I don't know. It's just those limitations. They aren't comfortable with it. They don't have that skill.
No. And it's interesting. And I kind of elaborated on it before with you ever just jump in the water? Like, if you look at most of your situations, like they're not life-threatening situations if you take a dip on most rivers, right? I'm not talking about, flood stage and all that fun stuff. I'm just talking about normal flows on your local river.
Yep.
I'm like, well, I've fished with, timid anglers before. I'm like, what do you think's going to happen? I mean, you're just going to get wet. So what? So like, it's not gonna. It's day ruiner. Sure, in the middle of winter, it could be a day ruiner. So
that's a great point.
I'm skipping around a little bit, but I tell people, just like in the summer, wet wade. If you're worried about it, you'd be shocked. Get a little more confidence wet wading out there in the river, and beating that fear. You'd be shocked at that extra 6 inches is going to give you X amount of more trout in your day.
That's what it is. I just came from baseball practice, Little League baseball practice, and the kids can field a ground ball when I'm just throwing it to them like 10 feet away. We do that drill all the time. It's not coming off of the bat. I just throw it to them, and they're moving to the ball. They have their head they see the ball all the way into their glove. Their eyes are on it. They're not backing away. They're moving to the ball. As soon as it comes off the bat, and let's say now 50 feet away, and if I hit it pretty hard, they're kind of going away from it. They're afraid of it. And it just reminds me of what you just said, Matt. There is a fear there. And I think it's okay to acknowledge that. And there's a fear that anglers have. That's like I said, people feel limited. They feel like, oh, I have a limitation here. I don't know that I could wade into there. I'm not sure I could get through that. It's a fear. But if we beat that, like you're saying, by realizing that, oh, that wasn't that bad. I fell down, but so what? I used to tell my kids, if you fall, get up. I guess I still say that. But when they were really young, I would take them out wading, And I would take them out fishing, sometimes just walking in the river, not even fishing. I mean, a lot of times when they were really young, sometimes with waders, sometimes not. And that's what I would say. If you fall, get up. It sounds stupid. It sounds simple, but that's it.
Yeah.
On our trout waters, I mean, what are we talking? Knee deep, thigh deep, maybe belt deep for the most part is what we're talking about here. If you fall, put your feet under you and get up.
Right.
It's so funny that's like that, but that is the fear. The fear is I'm going to get wet. It's like,
well, that too, yeah. It's not that you're going to die, but
exactly.
like, oh no,
It's
I don't want to get
never
wet.
the case. Like, I don't want to get wet. It's embarrassing, whatever. It's it's uncomfortable,
true.
Whatever. But what Matt's saying, it's like, just eliminate that. Just start by getting wet.
Yeah,
like wet.
I like that.
Yeah, and it's not a big deal, but the one other thing that I noticed these folks are really timid on, not just falling in, but it's that velocity of the current. And you see people, creep out to the current, right? And the reason they turn around half the time is that push, right?
Yeah.
And I would say just wade through it. It's like, I mean, if you look downriver, okay, and it's fast, I get it, you know, but we're talking, I'm going to say we're in the summer, right? Because it's like, it's whatever, you're wet wading, you're not, it's not cold, so you're not going to get hypothermic.
Right.
If you can see the tail out in a pool, like, what do you think's really going to happen? We're not talking about whirlpools, because there are rivers, right, that could have some bad whitewater, and I get that. We're not referencing that.
Exactly.
We're just talking.
Make that clear, right?
Yeah, we're just talking about our local rivers when they're at normal flow, and you can like. Well, I'm like, who was I with? Who's timid now? I'm gonna bust on him. A slooper.
No.
Slooper's getting timid on
every podcast.
Yeah,
poor guy.
But I just told him. I said, Sloop, you'll be fine. It's like, what, I'll come down and get you. You're just going to go wade off into the bank over there.
I'll come and get you.
Yeah. He'd dry you off.
That fishing over there, bud, is good.
Yeah.
Look, there's a lot of pounders over on that bank, and I want to get
towel them off. Come on, Slooper, you're all right. You're all right. Get back in there, bud. Pat him on the ass. There you go. Come on. You're all right.
Come on. There's two wading staffs.
It's back to that mental. There's something about the mental, and then people feel that rush of water, and for whatever reason, what rush of water is a trigger for some folks to back off.
That push,
right?
Yeah.
And have you guys not seen that with people?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think we've probably all felt it.
Right, we have all felt it. In the intro, I said how when I was a kid, okay, we have all of us here, as kids, we were in the water, right? 5, 10 years old, 12 years old, we're all in the water. So we acknowledge like we have that advantage. That push that Matt's talking about, we don't care. We don't even think about it. It doesn't enter our mind. If it's a significant push, we go, oh, okay, all right, lean into it. Here we go. But and we still go. But what I'm saying is I'm used to it. And I've seen many anglers, well, obviously not be used to it. I'm going to tell you something. I feel like anyone can be a good wader. And yet, so many people, especially many people won't like to hear this, but older anglers or newer anglers, they'll make excuses. Well, I had a knee surgery. Well, I'm getting older and my balance is kind of off. It's kind of, it's not as good as it used to be. Well, my ankle, I got a problem, or I got some arthritis in whatever, or the hips, or I don't know, this or that. And I'm going to tell you, anyone can be a good wader. Now, I'm not saying anyone can wade the Yellowstone River as it probably looks right now, Matt, right? You got the flows. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying if you have your local river, as Matt keeps saying, at knee-deep flows, maybe thigh-deep flows, like I promise you, you can do that. And obviously, there are exceptions. So I'm saying 95% of the people out there, you can be a good wader if you stop making excuses and say, all right, I'm going to do some things to help me be a good wader. And we're going to tackle that here in a minute. There's some gear stuff. There's some how you approach things. But I'm saying like everybody can do it. And I've been surprised while I'm guiding how often I focus on, hey, let's talk about like how to get through this water a little easier. Like, you don't need my arm. I don't mind lending people my arm. That's fine. Seriously. But, like, you don't need it. Like, we can get through it. You can gain that confidence, even though you don't have the experience from doing it since you were 12 years old. I'll occasionally get people that tell me, hey, I retired. And I always said when I was retired, I was going to pick up fishing. And now I have. And I often feel like saying to people, you waited too long, because there's a lot to learn, and it's going to start with just being in the water and being comfortable. And now you're probably going to tell me, well, I got some trouble still, and I'm older, so my balance is a little off. Like, dude, my balance is a little off, and I'm late 40s, and my balance is a little different than it was 5 years ago. But I have that advantage, like I said in the intro, of like doing it since I was young. I feel confident now, and I think I'll be good. I'm sure I'll be good when I'm older. I'll understand where my limitations are, though, because I've grown up doing it. So it's not that we don't have empathy for anyone who's just getting into it, but I think what we would all tell anyone who's new to the game or trying to branch out and just be a better wader is that you can do it. You have to get through that fear a little bit and trust yourself, trust some of the things we're going to talk about here too.
Right. No, that's all really good stuff, Dom. And I think it's not supposed to, especially with what you just said, if you're new, it's not like you're walking on a bank. Like, you got slippery boulders. It's not supposed to feel like walking on the bank.
Yeah.
You have to accept that a little bit, right? I mean, that when you're in there and you're waiting, there's unevenness. You're supposed to feel off balance and off camber. And that's okay, right? But I think that leads into the people that are feeling, unsettled, and it's different, and they feel odd in that river where you and we feel comfortable. It's like if I'm sliding down rocks and the river's pushing my butt, and I'm kind of looking back, smiling, and people were like, "Oh, that guy's wild," It's just like, yeah, what? I mean, I'm having fun. Like, what's going to happen?
Well, you're sliding, but you just know from experience that you're going to stop sliding, and that right foot is going to plant somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all right.
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's all familiarity and confidence, and just being in that environment for so long, you feel at home with it. And I think that's one piece when people are like, well, you feel like it looks like you wade effortlessly.
Yeah.
It's kind of a, something I've been doing a long time, right?
It's a good workout.
It is, yeah.
Whether it's after a fishing trip or at a backyard fire, you can bet the Troutbitten crew has a case of New Trail Broken Heels along with us. It's honestly our favorite beer. This hazy IPA is smooth and full-bodied. Hand-selected citra hops lead to notes of bright clementine and juicy ruby red grapefruit. Broken Heels is a keeper. New Trail beer is proudly brewed in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, and delivered cold to your favorite craft beer retailer every week. At New Trail, it's not about being the best angler. It's about getting out there. So enjoy nature's moments and reward yourself for a day well fished with New Trail Broken Heels. It's Troutbitten's favorite beer. For over a decade, Smith Creek has provided innovative, high-quality fly fishing accessories designed to put your gear in easy reach, free up your hands, and keep our waters clean. For 2023, check out the all-new patented tippet holder. Each unit is individually machined from billet aluminum and anodized in 2 eye-catching colors. They hold up to 5 tippet spools with a spring-loaded plunger that is quick and easy to use, keeping your tippet spools right where you need them. Also, the brand new Rod Clip Plus comes with an improved 304 steel pin, plus a carabiner clip, giving you 2 ways to attach it. All Smith Creek products are built guide tough and backed by solid customer service. To learn more about Smith Creek products, visit their website at smithcreek.co. So I always say it's wading, not walking. That's what I told my kids too. I have an article about that titled, "It's Wading, Not Walking," because I remember saying that to Joey when he was about 8 years old. And he said something to me like, walking through the river. Oh, you just walk through the river. I'm like, no. It might look like I'm walking, but I'm wading. And the point I made to him that day was this. And it's the first time I'd ever really thought about it. You brought this up, Matt. On the bank, you're walking. As soon as I hit the water, I'm not walking anymore. And the main difference is that I put 1 foot down and then it anchors before I pick the next foot up. When you're walking on a bank, you don't do that. You don't stick the foot on the ground. Now I can pick the other foot up. Stick the left foot down. Now I can pick the other foot up. But that's how we wade, and that's really the difference. You want to feel stable before you pick up the right foot. The right foot goes down, and then you're stable, and then you can pick up the left foot. And as you progress, as it becomes effortless, really, it looks like walking.
Sure.
And in the easiest water to wade, we're just walking.
Mhm.
It looks like we're walking, but we're still all doing that. I'm sure of it. It's 1 foot down and solid, and any other picks up. Anyway, that's the difference between wading and walking.
Because it happens faster, because
Right
there's
on.
something subconscious that happens. Like, I know when I'm solid, and that comes
Yeah.
a lot faster when you really understand how your foot and your boot reacts to a rock that's being pushed by a current. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you've not done that, then you kind of sit there and you sort of like shimmy your heel back and forth, trying to say,
Mhm.
is this solid? And then you
Right.
take the next step. And that's what wading looks like to a lot of people. And then
Yeah.
once you've gotten really used to it, it's like your foot hits the bottom, you feel it lock in, and then you can lift your next. And to your son, that probably looked like walking,
Right.
because
Right.
it looks like you're walking across the river, because those transitions that my foot hits the bottom, it locks in, I have traction, and I pick up the next one is happening very quickly.
It
Because
is.
there's this subconscious understanding, like, I'm solid now, I can pick up my right foot,
And there is some acceptance of just slippage.
Yeah,
You
for sure.
learn that's going to slip and then it's going to settle.
Yeah.
But to be able to do that, I think obviously you have to have done it a lot, but I think
Yeah.
you have to have good gripping power on the bottom of your boots. I feel like that's a lot
Good
of times overlooked by the average angler. Like,
Sure.
oh, I just, I got a pair of, rubber sole boots. I'm going to go out and wade this river.
Good
and then
luck.
it's got all this slime on it, and they're struggling to stand up all day.
Right.
Can we
on.
all agree that there's no good just rubber boot sole
Oh,
without
yeah.
any support?
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Rubber boots are a joke.
they're garbage.
Michelin soles, it doesn't matter what.
Doesn't
Come on.
matter if it's Michelin or Goodyear or
No,
Yeah.
it doesn't.
Vibram,
It doesn't.
Firestone.
Remember Aqua Stealth?
Firestone.
I think we just named all of them. Like, through the years, they put a clever name on it and they tell you it's made by so and so. It doesn't matter. Rubber soles all suck on most
Yeah.
terrain.
Mm,
Actually,
yeah.
one of our local rivers, you can wear rubber soles with no studs, and it's pretty dang good. But it's the only one that I can think of.
Yeah, it's mostly
Right.
gravel though. It's not a lot
Exactly.
of rocks.
Yeah.
When you're not dealing with large chunks of limestone, then you're kind of okay. If it's a gravel base, you can wear anything you want.
Yeah.
Yep.
So let's get into that, Bill. Let's talk. I mean, we're talking about, hey, you just let your foot settle. Well, if you have the wrong traction, then your foot isn't going to settle.
No, it's going to keep sliding.
keep
You're
slipping.
you're 2 feet down, and next thing you know, you're doing a split.
Yeah, so part of this is that confidence and experience we're talking about, and another part, obviously, is the gear. I'm going to say, quickly, I think you need good support in the boots. I'm not a big fan of whatever the lightest boots that you can buy, or let's say boots with little support. I always want boots with good support, so that I don't know, predictable, kind of predictable the way they're going to flex. I don't want them, super
It
flex.
depends.
Go
For
ahead.
me, it depends. If I'm fishing a
Yeah.
river that I know has a lot of big boulders, I'll fish a heavier boot.
Yeah.
So that if my foot does slide into a big boulder,
Mhm.
it's not gonna take the abuse. Where if I'm fishing a brook trout stream and I'm hiking and covering maybe 7-8 miles a day, I'll take the lightest boot that I have, because I know that it's, I'm not going to face those big boulders.
That's
It's
a nice
more
point.
of just a hiking experience.
That's a nice point, and that'll cut down on the fatigue for sure.
Yeah.
So right now I'm wearing really, really, I mean, what I'd say is sort of bomb-proof, like really solid, structured shoes or
Yeah.
What is
wading
it?
boots. Well, they're the G4s. They're like a lot more than I've had in the past.
Are they the ones with the new spot to put the aluminum?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm a G3 guy. That's why I asked. I like the
Me too.
G3 because I can put
Me
my
too.
own traction in.
Yes.
But I will say with them that I put on my own Loctite, and that has really helped. And I've not had, since I did that, I've not had any fallout it's not been that many days, maybe 40 days on the water with them. I've not had any fallout. But anyway,
Tell us more though about why you like the bomb proof.
well, I'm saying that right now I'm using the bomb proof, but I
Yeah.
honestly don't know that I like them better.
Well, you had
because
really light ones
I had
not
the
too long ago.
I imagine they're one of the lightest ones you can have. There's
Sure.
my previous pair, so
Yeah.
I'm going to polar opposites really.
Mhm.
Which is what? Which one?
The older
flyweight?
version of the flyweight. Yeah.
flyweights.
Yeah.
I
I
have
love
those.
them. I love them, honestly.
Okay.
And it's not just that I love them on easy terrain streams. I really do. I think that they had enough enough structure for me.
Structure and support.
Yeah, I think they had enough. Like I wasn't moving around in them. Like I noticed that I really do notice how much heavier these ones are.
Did you put the traction on those flyweights?
Yeah, grip studs.
Okay.
Bill,
Yeah.
you had
I
something.
was going to say the weight. Like I don't know. As I get older, I've noticed that's a huge thing for me. Like I can fish longer if my
That's
wading
fair.
boots are lighter, and I can cover more water. And I think it makes the wading a little bit easier. So we'll talk like the one thing Trevor and I have talked about this, like with the flyweights, or like I wear the really light corker boots. And so with those, the material's a little bit lighter.
Yeah.
And so when you're wading, when you kick a rock, or you can use your foot to kind of feel the rock, where like the heavier boots, like the G3s are, there's that really solid toe up front. And so you can't necessarily like use your foot to kind of bump and feel your way, because it kind of
It is.
it kind of deadens the your touch with your feet. And so I feel like with the lighter boots, I have more, like my feet are a little more sensitive. And so where I step, or where I kind of, if I'm in the middle of a step or whatever, like I can put my wading staff down and I can use the toe to kind of feel, okay, where's the best base to put my foot for my next step?
Sure.
I do think that might be what it is that I noticed the biggest difference is that I feel it with these boots that I'm using right now that are big and have wonderful structure and are really solid, and I know aren't going to give out on my ankle or anything, and I'm not going to hurt if I hit a rock or something, if I slide into a crevice or something like that. But I don't feel like I feel the bottom as well. Like I don't feel like I feel the angles. I don't feel like I'm using intuition and like in years of practice to feel out the bottom of the river.
That's the trade-off.
Yeah, I feel like I'm kind of just powering through it.
I think that's like a personal preference. And Bill, you're saying you'll change boots knowing what terrain you plan to cover.
Yeah.
Me, I kind of always wear the same boots. I like a lot of structure. And when you say structure in a boot, people often think ankle support. That's great. Ankle support matters. But we're all saying, too, we're talking about the thickness of the midsole and that last sole, the bottom sole.
Yeah.
Where you can feel the bottom or you can not feel the bottom. And like personally, I prefer not feeling the bottom so much, but I acknowledge that it's kind of neat when you can. And I've had really, kind of flyweights and other really light boots. It's neat, right? I mean, I don't know that many people really think about that. Many people will just say, I really like these boots.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you, Dom. I'm a bigger support guy. And I feel it. I don't necessarily feel, I guess, when I'm waiting, I'm looking where I'm going more. So I think that's kind of just how I naturally move through the water, right? I'm like trying to look at the obstacles, place my foot accordingly. And maybe because of that, I'm sloppier and I need that more support just to bang off of rocks and whatnot.
You have to bang. Yeah, that's kind of, I feel like I'm just kind of just banging through the water a lot of times. Well, you just said you look. I mean, I've often told people I think polarized lenses are a real key to wading.
Oh, yeah.
I've had people say, well, it's not very sunny out. I don't need my sunglasses, my polarized lenses, do I? I'm like, oh, yeah.
Oh.
We want to see not only into the water so that we can fish better, but so that we can wade better. Bill?
Yeah, when I first started guiding, I was really surprised how often people would just not wear them. Like experienced anglers would be like, oh, I don't need them.
Right.
And I'm like, no, you want to be able to see into the water. And then like on top of that, like I carry 3 different shades of polarized glasses because, and they don't have to be expensive. Like you can go to Walmart and get,
seriously,
$10 or $15 pairs, and they're still going to, like, if it's really dark, you want yellow. If it's, amber is kind of for me, it's the best overall. And then you could have a darker pair if it's, blazing sun. But like being able to see into the water, to cut the glare and to be able to see where the rocks are, like you may not be able to, people always think like, oh, I'm going to wear polarized glasses because I'm going to spot fish. But to me, the biggest advantage is I can spot rocks so that I don't trip over them.
Yeah. Yeah. It has to do with the fishing and the wading.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
The presentation. Yeah. I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Both. Yeah.
One of the things that you just said, I think is a good point. And it's that I mean, sure, if you've got the budget, go and buy the nicest thing and go and buy, the Guide's Choice or whatever the brand that you like, their version of that is, because it's great for cutting out light coming in from other sources. But if you're trying to see where you're walking, you really don't need to go and buy the nicest thing.
Yeah.
Any polarization, like when you spend $200 on a pair of sunglasses, you're buying 10% better, 20% better, maybe.
Agreed. Yeah.
Like it's just not necessary. Like
It
just
isn't.
wear something. And if it's low light, wear something more yellow tinted.
Well, what Bill said there about having those 3 different lens colors, I think a lot of times people don't wear their lenses because maybe they do have the dark gray ones. And then a lot of times we fish in pretty low light conditions, and then they'll say, well, I'm not going to put those on because it cuts so much light out. Well, then go buy yourself a pair of $15 Walmart yellow polarized lenses. Anyway, you'll see in better. You're just going to see in better. You're going to see in, and like Matt said, you're going to be able to cut through the water and wade where you want because you know what's down there. That is critical.
Yep.
Has a lot to do with body positioning. Like whether you're wading upstream or downstream, the way we move our body through the water. You guys ever think about that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it never occurred to me until I started guiding people and saying like, okay, like let's say you're wading into a really fast current.
Yeah.
You're not going to approach it like head on, like wading straight into it. You need to turn your body and make your body as narrow as possible into that fast current, because then it's going to have less impact on you. At that point, let's say it may be fast, but it may only be like calf deep.
Yeah.
And so your calves really aren't all that wide for most people. And so if you're turning sideways,
I don't know, Bill. Have you ever seen my calves?
I know.
Have you ever seen
Calf
me
master.
wade a river?
But yeah, if you turn your body kind of sideways, like, I don't know, when I wade, if I'm wading a fast current, I'll often turn my body sideways so that I'm not absorbing the majority of the current.
For sure.
And the deeper that current gets, the more impact it has on you. And so if you're standing crotch deep in a really fast run that's coming at you, if you're looking upstream at it, it's going to really push hard on you and it's going to almost knock you over, versus if you turn sideways, it's going to make that much less force on you.
Yeah, and it's important to understand how that works, because I think that the natural tendency is to, when you turn sideways, because maybe you might understand like simple aerodynamics mean like turn sideways, make yourself skinny, and it's going to be better. But then people will lean. I've seen people want to lean like into the river and brace with that front foot. That's not what you want to do. When you're blocking water, when you're making yourself skinny, use your back foot that has all of the traction. Because when you block the water with your front foot, your back foot's going to be the one that settles in. So
that's nice.
Use that one as the one that gets all the traction. Like, don't lean into the water, lean out of the
point.
like lean with the current, because that's where all of your traction is.
That's a good tip.
I lean into it because I'm to me, if it's really fast, I want to lean into it, because if I'm leaning on my back foot and I slip, I could go for a ride quicker.
Lean into it, but lean with your back foot. Your back foot's what's bracing you. The one that has the one that's in the slow water.
I got him.
Yeah.
I love that stuff. And as we're moving through and reading the water, I'm looking for gravelly areas, or areas where it looks like I can get a good foothold. Or if you can't see in, if it's a little dirty, then you're feeling for that. And when you find one of those spots that are, I'm going to say, just solid, whether it's nice and gravelly or whatever, it's solid. Okay, there's your spot. And then maybe around it, whatever, you're feeling for those good footholds, and you recognize like, oh, this is tough. I got to kind of move around this. Let me get out of here. Let me move to the right. Oh, let me get in that pocket. Well, right where the fish, maybe right where I caught that last fish, and he was sitting there because the water was a little slower. Often right under that slower water is some gravelly stuff or sediment or a little bit of sand mixed with the gravel or on top of the rock. That's often where your best footing is. So when we're wading pocket water, we're often going from pocket to pocket to pocket, not just fishing the next pocket, but often standing in a pocket that we already fished.
Yep.
That's another way to approach it, right?
That's exactly. You're fishing to a pocket, then you wade into that pocket, because that pocket most likely is being there's something above it, whether it's a boulder or
Yeah.
a log or something that's obstructing it, that's causing it to be slower. And so you're when I work across the river, it's, fish the seam, wade to the seam, fish the seam, wade to the seam until
Nice.
you're the whole way across the river.
Yeah.
I love that too, because it, who knows how much this matters, but it does defend you from the sight of the fish.
Say more. I missed it.
Well, I just mean like when you're wading into one of those, like let's say a pocket of water is usually behind something. You are using that something to block off yourself from
right
what you're
on.
fishing for. You know?
Yep. Keep your presence
Yeah,
obscure.
exactly.
Right
Yeah.
on.
So I love it when I can like get into one of those pockets like that, and where
For
I'm
sure.
fishing for something up above it. I'm like, these fish have no idea that I'm here, because it's
Right
almost
on.
like you're fishing the next level, but you're not fishing the next level. You just
And if you're fishing some really heavy runs, which I love doing, and I've seen you guys, we all seem to love wading some really heavy water. And again, sometimes it's because most people won't. For me, it's I catch some of the best fish of the year, the biggest fish of the year out of the heaviest runs. And I just love being surrounded by that water. And I also love the challenge of wading the kind of stuff. I feel like I accomplished something because I got in there, and it is, there's a challenge to it beyond the challenge of fishing that makes me feel like I got all the way to the other side. I wasn't sure I could do that at 500 CFS or 800 CFS or something. And I don't feel like at any point we're certainly not recommending anybody, don't put yourself in danger. Whatever. We are saying to kind of go beyond your comfort zone. If you feel like that, something you need to do is be a better wader, well then go beyond your comfort
You're going to
zone.
be driving down your local river next week, and it's going to look like a landmine went off.
a little danger is good for you.
Just wear those little floaties on your arm that Madison was probably
Yeah.
wearing, Matt, last summer. Right? Those little yellow floaties.
Oh,
You
yeah.
could put those on
When
your
in
wrists.
doubt, just
on
throw
your
some
forearms.
floaties. Hey, I always said if there was a product I wanted to invent, because they have them for like avalanches, you can pull a cord and it'll blow up like a little inner tube on your
Yeah.
back to give you breathable space.
Yeah.
I always wanted to do one that would just blow up, and it would be an inner tube, because out here you can fish. You stay below the high water mark, fish upstream 2 miles, and just get in my tube and float back to my car.
Yeah. I've always thought that something like that would be, honestly, they probably make it.
cool.
They
probably
do make life
They
vests.
probably make
that-
life vests like that, and which I thought would be
Ripcord.
really neat for
They make
for
those.
floating, just because
Matt
like,
wants, though.
I need to wear this. Yeah,
He wants to start the day as a wade angler and finish the day
He
as a
wants
floating.
fly
I love
craft.
it.
He wants a fly craft to just inflate.
I want my broken
in a
heels.
5x5 pack.
I want my 4-pack of broken heels, and I just want to imagine you being the guy that floats by all the anglers that, hey guys.
But honestly, those you can get like a personal sized inner tube that packs down real small.
Yeah.
Like, why not just
What are
do
you
it and bring a
blowing
little
it up
pump?
with?
You just bring like a little hand pump.
There you go.
Like, Matt, do it, man. That'd be
Josh
awesome.
is coming right out. He's going to show you how to do it.
People are going to be throwing rocks at me and poking holes in my inner tube.
Oh, yeah.
Nice. So when I was young, here's a story for you. When I was young, we went to a local really big river, and my dad can't swim. He can like doggy paddle, and so he was scared to death that I would fall into this river and drown. And so he made me wear like the little like red inner tube that you wear as a kid.
Oh,
And so I had to wear that the whole day
Around
while
your
we
waist?
fished. And I remember, I remember I was so
Humiliating.
mad. I was like, Dad, I can swim. I'm not going to fall in. And so, he made me wear this bright red inner
no,
tube.
that's rough. How old were you?
I don't know. I was young.
16,
I did,
17, something like that?
28.
Come on, Dad.
Come on, Dad. I can drive. I can float.
It's funny, man.
Tactical Fly Fisher was founded by Fly Fishing Team USA angler Devin Olson to bring anglers cutting-edge gear and techniques from the international competitive fly fishing scene. Tactical Fly Fisher's aim is to help you improve your angling ability so you can have more fun on the water. Whether you need some flies, fly tying equipment, or a new rod or reel, they've got you covered. Head on over to tacticalflyfisher.com and use the code TBPOD10, that's TBPOD10, to get 10% off flies, fly tying supplies, or terminal tackle. Hey, so we talked about boots. Let's do boot studs and wading staff for gear. I mean, we got to cover that, right?
Yeah.
Boots
Yeah.
is one
Oh,
thing.
yeah.
We talked about that in the
Yep.
support. What about boot studs?
I think, Del, you mentioned it before, and I'll back you on this. I think a lot of people underestimate their current traction. Some of those studs wear out. I mean, they just get dull.
Yeah.
I've seen it over and over again, and people think, you pay. We all know they're expensive. Some of the cleats out there, you pay a decent amount for them. And I don't know about you, but if you're an aggressive wader, those things don't last long. I mean, whether they pop out or they get dull, you should constantly be checking that condition on your wading boots if you want to maintain an edge for grip. Personally, and I'm not, Dom, you got me on the grip stud. I've been a grip stud guy since that day, and they work really well for me. But let's be honest, right? Every stream bottom is different. So,
and they don't work.
I don't
everywhere.
care. They don't work everywhere, and I don't care. Some rivers, they're just hard to wade. They're always going to be hard to wade, right? Like there's not a magic grip for every situation. I would say what we're talking about, 70% of the time, we feel comfortable with. I'm talking on behalf of myself in a grip stud in my G3s. And I feel confident in that scenario. Is there stuff that it doesn't work in? Sure.
Yeah, granite. I'm kind of surprised because you're on top of some granite sometimes, right?
Yeah, and it's tough at times.
The grip studs are single point tungsten carbide tips. Now there's other brands out there, and find those. Single point carbide, and they bite in real nice until you get to something that's harder than the tungsten.
Right.
And then they don't bite, but they slide. Right. And then you can go the opposite and go aluminum. And now there's a lot of aluminum options. And I used to, when Patagonia first came out with the bars, I was like, this is amazing.
We all had them. Remember how many we had?
Around here? Fantastic. I felt like Spider-Man for a while.
Those were great for a while. Yeah.
Right.
They just wear out.
Exactly. That's the trouble with the bars is as soon as they lose the edge and they start to round out too much, then you're back to, hey, this isn't very good. And you have to replace them a lot. Like you said, Matt. Yep. I think the Orvis Posi, what is it? Posi grip?
Posi trap, yeah. Those are decent.
I like those. And they're tungsten, I think. And then they have like 4 points at the top of a very aggressive screw head. Those are cool.
Sure.
Guys, remember when we used to run were they cold cutters? Is that what they were called?
Yeah, I still use those.
Yeah, and they wear out quick. But
they wear out quick, but man, they grip like nothing else, at least for a day and a half.
Right.
Like I do.
Right.
It's part of Bill's bedtime routine is replace them.
Bedtime.
But
sure. There's a lot of good options.
My favorite traction, I know you guys give me hell for it, but the Corkers felt with studs is hands down the best traction of any boot that I've ever owned.
Well, and felt with studs, I would argue, is anybody's best traction.
If it's legal
everywhere.
and if it's okay for you to use it, and that's
You can't.
I've had
those.
The Corkers, the felt with studs, and they're great. They're great. They really are amazing.
I had LL Bean boots with felt with studs and whatever. I mean, through the years, I've had felt with studs a few times. I got away from felt when I really started getting into winter fishing because I don't like.
It stinks.
You get stilts. You get snow stilts.
Yeah, I won't wear them in the winter.
Right. So you got to have multiple boots and whatever. And I hike so much, like you though, Bill, that I do like the traction of the bankside traction of rubber. But then I like having, for me, I like those grip studs on there too, or those Posi grips with the Orvis. Those are definitely one of my favorites too.
I think it's also very good to mention, and I have this conversation with a lot of folks when discussing gear. The four of us currently are putting this stuff to the absolute max test you could possibly, want out of a product. And so there's listeners out there that could say, I'll get a message through Instagram like, hey, I had this boot and I have a great time. And then it turns out they fish 5 times a year. Well, sure.
Yeah.
It's all relative, right? You got listeners out there could have really good experiences with products that may not work for us, but it's all about how much time you spend on the water. So if you're going to spend 100 days fishing over the next 5 years, you might get a really good turnout on a product that maybe is, middle of the road. And I encourage folks to seek that out, right? But for me, the team here, right, the group here, I mean, we want something that's going to last. And I think that when we speak about this stuff, that's where our mindset is we beat the snot out of it. And these are things that have worked for us.
Yeah,
that's true.
Now the lightweight boots, I'm getting 50 to 60 days out of those, and I'm just they're lighter material, and so I'm taking that as okay, it's not going to last as long, but it's going to allow me to fish longer.
You get your advantage.
That's my trade out.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to have to refresh those maybe twice a year.
Yeah.
Or once a year.
Same thing with the studs. I mean, if you are fishing 5 days or even 15 days a year, you could get those cold cutters real cheap. And like Bill said, that's excellent traction. They're motorcycle studs, motorcycle tire studs. And
that's how grip studs started also, right?
Right. Grip studs is also marketed to motorcycle tires and other tires. And anyway, you can get those cold cutters and the grip studs, a pretty good price, especially because the grip studs last forever, a very long time, because they're tungsten carbide and it's single point. Anyway, I mean, there's a lot of great options, but do we all agree that you need studs in the boots?
Oh, yes.
I agree.
I mean, people will, as soon as I book a trip, many people have questions, even before I kind of give them my next email, which has a bunch of answers, preemptive answers to those questions. And people say, what should I bring? And I say studs and a wading staff and polarized lenses. Those are the three things that people seem to forget or miss or think they don't need the most. So what about the wading staff?
It's a game changer.
We all have one. Right? We all have one.
Yeah.
You guys are in some of the best fishing shape of anybody that I know. I mean, Josh, you're probably the strongest person here and the most well-balanced, although Bill never falls in. So, right?
It's been years for him.
Years. Decades. Decades.
He doesn't fall. Once a decade, he falls in. No, but seriously, I mean, and I've written multiple articles about this, and Josh, you and I did a video on the wading staff because I think we have a really good system for doing it. So I think we should walk through it quickly. But anyway, we're all kind of bought into either. It's very similar. We all do it in a very similar way. And I'm going to say, Matt, you are the one who got me going on a wading staff. You fished what we call the Big Boy River. We referred to it earlier. And that river, when I would fish it with you, this is, oh my gosh, like 2 decades ago. Yeah. Right. I would be like, man, this is tough. I didn't have a wading staff. And then I had a surgery on my neck. And I was like, late 30s. I think I was 38 when I had that surgery. And Matt, do you remember I fished that river? I think it was with you. For the first time back fishing, I fished that river. And I was like, gosh.
Baptism by fire.
Right. And I mean, this is first time back. And, some muscles had atrophied.
Sure.
I mean, seriously. Anyway, so first time back from surgery, I'm like, I need a wading staff. So I set up a broomstick and put it on a shoestring and hung it off my wading belt and stuff. And I swear to God, seriously, that's what I did. I still have it in the garage. But I mean, I don't use it because it's a terrible wading staff idea. I mean, anyway, I learned on that trip, like, oh, this really, really helps to have a wading staff. And I remember seeing you, Matt, you had a good way to grab it, a good way to let it go, and then a good way to grab it again when you needed it. It didn't get in your way. The way you rigged it, I was like, that's pretty good. And then I was guiding a guy named Paul Almquist, who I saw his staff and the way he had things set up, and I went, that's really it for me. And now we all kind of do the same thing, right?
Yeah, it's right there on the left hip, and it's tight, and so you don't want there to be a lot of slack when you're not using it. And that's
right.
That's obviously super important. Yeah. So we all use the gear keeper.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. I don't know what poundage you guys use, but mine's pretty heavy, and I don't mind it being that way because as soon as I let go, I know it's always going to be right there. Even if it gets caught, it's going to be right there.
Right on. So what we're talking about, you can seriously go to the Troutbitten YouTube channel, look and search wading staff, and you'll find it.
Yeah.
It's a collapsible wading staff. It can be either retractable or collapsible. It's a trekking pole. It's not a wading staff. To be quite honest, almost every wading staff that the industry offers you, I think not a good choice. Often they're overbuilt. They're too heavy. We want it to be retractable with a fairly light gear keeper. Mine's 12 ounces, meaning 12 ounces of pool retracting strength. Anyway, these trekking poles, whatever, you can get 2 of them for like $35-$40. You can go a little stronger or thicker with them and maybe spend $80, Josh, for 2 of them. That's what you have, I think.
Yeah. So if you buy the ones that break apart, they're a little. Sometimes they're a little cheaper. If you buy the telescopic ones that slide into themselves, I think that they're a little more solid. Sometimes they're a little more expensive.
Right, they are.
They also take up
They
more
are.
space. And so depending on how you want
Yeah.
to pack them, that does matter.
Yes. And so pack them is important to me because I don't want a waiting staff all the time. And that's what I used to, the broomstick, for example, or a ski pole or whatever. And it was always there. And I'm like, I don't want it all the time. And there's so many, like half the time out there, I don't need the waiting staff. So I collapse it or retract it. And I put it at the small of my back. You could find your own way of doing it. And when I extend it, then it's right there, like Josh said, on my left hip because I'm left-handed and I'm casting with my right. And so I can be casting and walking and wading.
Because
and
you're right-handed, right?
Because I'm right-handed. And then I'm not even thinking about the waiting staff. And then all of a sudden I start to trip and I can just reach back there, bang. I know right where it is. It's always in the exact same spot because the gear keeper, the retractor, has brought it there. It's always right there. Anyway, it stays out of your way. It's very light. It's packable.
They're solid too.
They are very solid.
Like
It's a third leg.
I've definitely had instances where I'm like, if this
That's
waiting
what she
staff
said.
was not solid, get out of here. You get out of here.
You get out of here.
I've definitely had
Okay,
instances
stop
where
it.
if
Get
the
outta
waiting
here.
staff was not solid, I would
Yeah.
go over. Many times. Like there's a
Yeah.
lot of I put all of my balance on that sometimes,
Tripod.
They're solid. You should use it.
I was fortunate enough to find a Sims waiting staff floating down a river and picked it up. Luckily, it wasn't attached to a body. But
he accidentally ripped the phone number off it, listeners.
yeah.
If found, please return to
Bill Deli.
dot, dot, dot.
That's a
Cut that
five-figure
off.
discount.
Some guy was fishing. I just walked up behind him and cut it and ran.
He'll never catch up to you because you're the fastest waiter out there.
That's right.
Hip flexors.
And I don't fall in. But I tell you what, that Sims waiting staff is really nice. It is. It's as light, if not maybe lighter than those trekking poles. And the one thing I like about it is I'm taller, and so it's higher, and so it does help some.
I had it and it felt like it was really maybe it's a different model. I don't know what they've changed, but I had the Sims one and it felt really flexy to me. Like I really love, like I've got like one of the more nicer brands but cheaper
You do
models
have
that they make. It's like a black diamond trekking pole.
Mm-hmm. That's
And-
what it is.
And it's it is so solid. And that Sims one, I know the length, you're right. But to me it felt like it flexed a ton.
It does flex some, but I don't put I don't know, just the higher angle I think does make a difference since I'm taller.
Yeah.
Like just being able, that higher angle just seems to help me maneuver better.
They make like different lengths of those extendable ones too.
Mhm.
I would say like the staff itself, I think can absolutely be a personal choice. But I feel like what are almost the deal breakers to me and the inarguable things. You want a retractor that brings it all the way back to your hip,
Yeah.
to your belt every time. And the staff needs to be light enough for that to be able to happen with the retractor that you have. And for me, I want it to be packable because I don't want it to be a fixed length that it can't be broken down. Because I don't want it. When I'm walking out, I don't want it. I don't want it dragging. I hate that. You ever been walking out with somebody and their staff's just dragging behind them the whole time? I'm like, no. Can you hold that? Yeah. And the other thing, it just gets in your way. If you don't have a way to pack it or just to have it at least retracted to your hip, then it's very much in your way, and it's gonna. That's why people don't like waiting staffs.
Worse than
because
that.
of the inefficiency of it.
Yeah.
So for so many years, I thought like, oh, I don't need that. I'll do that when I'm older. When I'm an old guy, I'll need a staff. The staff gives anyone just that I can wade faster because I have the staff. That's the thing for me. I can wade faster. I'm more efficient. I'll get into water that I couldn't get into before. I'm surprised I did it for that many years without a staff, because as soon as I started using one, because of you, Matt, I was like, this is awesome. This is gold. And that's it. I mean, why not have it if you rig it the way we're talking about?
Well, and it gives you the more confidence that we're talking about. Right. I mean, it's an
What we
integral
started with.
piece of gear
Right.
that'll help you build confidence, maybe waiting that more aggressive line,
Yeah.
and put you on more fish. Right. And it's a security
Seriously.
blanket, and it's a productive one.
Seriously, catching more fish. How many pieces of gear do we talk about? Sometimes fly rods and fly lines and leaders and stuff and tippet size and whatever. And we're like, well, I don't know if it actually catch you more fish, but this is what I like. And what you just said there, my waiting staff catches me more fish by the end of the day.
Go to Amazon and get one for the cheap ones for $15 to $20. That'll catch you more fish. It'll be the best investment you make.
Quite seriously, that's true.
There you have it.
I had a lot of back problems, I don't know, 5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
And so I started using it because of that, because just with that extra, point of, keeping more balance, you don't slip and jar your back as much with that, whether it's a wading staff, a trekking pole, whatever you want to use. If you have a bad back, it's like it should be number one on your list of things to own.
Yeah, I'm serious. I don't care the age of the angler.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this a couple of times, different ages and experience levels. When I was going to school at Penn State, my buddy Sam came out with me. He had very limited river fishing experience. I will always remember he was out there, and he looked like a baby deer. He did. He had bought hip waders the day before, so he had no traction, and he had almost no wading experience. Sam was in good shape. He's like, strong, built well. And I was just making fun of him all day because he was so shaky on his two legs. And I kept yelling over to him, like you, Matt, like, what do you think's going to happen? Like, if you fall, you're going to get wet. Who cares? Like, you're shaking, you're leaning back and forth. You're so scared. Like, who cares? Just go upstream. But that's it. It's the inexperience. Sam could have definitely benefited from better boot soles, a wading staff, probably some polarized lenses, definitely some grip studs or some kind of studs on the bottom of the boots, and then experience. Throw yourself in a river and see what happens. Be a little more bold.
Listening to you say that, Dom, made me think back to a time where I had same situation, a buddy across the river, and I like the baby deer, right?
That's what he looked like.
My buddy looked like a baby deer, but he also looked like 50 yards downstream was going to be like an Amazon waterfall.
He's afraid
he was
going
so
over the abyss.
And I was like, bud, like, it's actually shallower downstream. Like, even if you fall, you might just sit there. Like, you might not even float because it's so shallow. But he acted like there was a 100-foot waterfall, right down from him. And it's comical to see.
So those are the places to learn. The places where it is only knee deep. Yeah. Nothing bad is really going to happen. I mean, it's not. If you fall, get up.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that's the things we're covering there those are the tips. Those are the things that are going to put you in better water, in better situations, and you'll be one step ahead of the next guy that pulls in the same parking lot.
Yeah. And I think to bring it even more full circle, we had a episode, maybe it was last year, just about learning your river, right? I don't think you're able to fully learn your river without being an accomplished wader. I think that truly adds to the chapter of your river. You need that chapter, right? You need that chapter of good wading to fully understand all the secrets it has.
Ooh, that's good. I like that.
It's good.
Yes, sir.
Anything else, guys?
I would just say, like, if I'm wading and I know I'm going to move through some fast currents, the first thing I'm looking for is a big rock, because often behind that big rock is some gravel, or at least I'm getting a break from the current behind that
softer
big rock.
Water. Yeah. From rock to rock, or from bank seam to bank seam, whatever it is. Yep.
Yeah.
From wadable water to wadable water, or from easier water, the break. Yeah. Because that's where the fish sit. What you just said, Matt, too. I mean, we learn like, oh, I can stand here. Oh, the fish probably sat here too. And you do. You wade in. Dude, I remember just last week wading into a piece of water. It's all gotten changed on the right channel. It's all changed. There's some big trees that just got washed in, and the gravel bars are all different. And I hung up and I'm like, I'm going to go get that. And I knew I was going to be basically pushing the top of my waders, but it wasn't real fast. I'm like, I'm going to go get it because I really want to see how deep that is. And I learned a lot by walking over, by wading over there. I learned a lot about that, and I'm excited to go back because I know where those fish are going to be. Yep. Learn your river by wading it.
And it's not going to happen in one day.
Good point.
you're not going to go out there in one day. If you fish 10 times a year, it's still going to be a struggle. Like if you want to get good at it, you have to practice. It's like anything else. You know, we're talking from experience of, 180, 50, 100 plus days a year on a river over decades. We're kind of coming at it from the higher end of the confidence perspective. And so if you want to catch more fish, spend the time on the river to at least get more comfortable wading.
It's another one of those things in fly fishing where there are really no shortcuts.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Well said. Yeah. You got to earn it.
Except air squats,
Air squats.
body weight squats.
I'll point this out. Matt, do you remember when you told me that you get up every morning and do push-ups and squats or whatever? You said, so I can go wade the river. So I know I can wade the rivers.
More core these days, but I think that's Bill was talking about back issues. I had back issues, along with having a strong core is really, really beneficial for the old back when you're wading aggressive. And Dom, I think you alluded to it at the beginning. I mean, there's no question that prohibits a lot of people from getting after it.
Oh, sure.
Straight up physical stuff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And yet, I feel like you can overcome almost all of that by doing the things we're talking about. Good boots, good studs, polarized lenses, wading staff, finding the seams and the breaks and making a plan and not trying to do too much, but being disciplined. That's why I talked about Joe in the beginning. I'm serious. The guy was 87 years old, one of the best waders and fishermen that I've ever seen. I was like, he amazed me. He really did. He was there with his buddy, and his buddy was in his 50s. And Joe was remarkably better at fishing because he was so much better at wading. That's what it came down to. It was not, the conditions were not easy. And when Joe waded up there, Joe started fishing while I'm getting his buddy's rig ready or whatever. And Joe's like, well, what about that spot? I'm like, that's nice up there. But, hey, get swift up there. Be careful. Because I'm thinking, like, the guy looks older. And no, Joe goes right up there and he just caught a couple fish right away while I'm still tying knots for his buddy. And and I just watched him do it all day. It was remarkable. And it always sticks with me. I've brought that guy up many times. I've mentioned him to people who will tell me, well, I got a hip problem or a knee problem. I understand, but you can do it. Don't let yourself believe that you can't do it. I feel like too, that's a stubbornness that I plan to have when I get older. I never want to give myself that out and say like, well, I'm 75 now. I guess my fishing days are done. I won't be able to do it. You can do it. Like, you can do it. I don't care if it's your first day fishing and you're 20 years old or it's your first day fishing and you're 75 years old.
Right.
You can do it. You can do it.
Sure.
Don't make the excuses. The reason it is difficult is not because of your age or your medical issues. It's difficult because it's new to
mentally.
you. Mentally.
Well said.
The lack of confidence because it's new to you. Trust us. You can do it.
And things hurt. Like at the end of the day, like I fished a lot of water today. Like my back's sore, my legs are sore. Yeah. But the more
and hell, you're only 25 years old, Bill.
That's right. Yeah. 25. Just turned 25.
Younger than me.
The grind got you.
But
he was grinding.
The more you're out there, I do think there's something to you're kind of conditioning your legs. Like you can do squats, you can do all this stuff in the gym, but when you go out to the river, it's working a whole different muscle set.
There's stabilization muscles that you cannot work outside of wading through a river.
And when all else fails, crack broken heels, and you'll feel much better at the end of the day.
This episode sponsored by.
Yeah, it's that river weariness we've talked about. I love that feeling. Like, oh, I put on some extra miles today.
Yeah.
All right, there it is. Good wading skills are up to you. If you're shaky out there, then it really does take a commitment to change a few things and develop an approach. It takes planning and follow through. Good wading might also require a few gear tweaks. We've all gone through it, and we've learned what the right boots, boot studs, and a wading staff can do for the fishing. We've learned to read the water not just for the fishing opportunities, but to plan a path through the river that leads into prime lies with efficiency and minimal effort. Unless we're in a drift boat, then good weighting may very well be more important than good casting or the right fly selection. So wade better, fish harder, and have more fun out there. All right, Josh, will you read us out?
Heck yeah. All right, remember, the Troutbitten Project is a free resource for all anglers. The Troutbitten website hosts over 1,000 articles, hey now, with endless stories, commentaries, tactics, tips, and more. Find what you like through the top menu and through the search page. Navigate by way of the categories and tags, too. Be sure and find the Troutbitten YouTube channel, currently featuring the Troutbitten Tips series in collaboration with Wilds Media, hey now. These are short, useful, and unique tips for your fly fishing life. Thank you for listening to the Troutbitten Podcast. Please give the show a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts and leave a comment, because that really helps. Until next time, friends, fish hard, enjoy the day, and find your life on the water.
That's nuts, Bill.
All right.
It'll make you a good waiter, whether you want to or not.
A little danger is good for you.
Don't question Surefoot Billy.
All right, so Bill fishes a lot, doesn't fall in, and we'll hear his secrets in a minute.
Bill Dell off the podcast. No one ever heard from him again.
Whatever. This guy.
Hockey fight.
I'll come and get you.
She found out the last year and a half, why the hell's Dad in the closet? I found him. She's like, why does Dad always run errands?
Come on, Slooper, you're all right. You're all right. Get back in there, bud.
Come on.
I'm doing it wrong.
Look, there's a lot of pounders over on that bank, and I want to get them.